This is Andy Tube. In this video I'm going to show you the complete original attachment set that the Singer factory shipped to the Singer stores with the Slant-O-Matic 403 Special, which I usually call the 403A. And I have almost all of the original pieces. There's some optional attachments and fashion aids that you could buy separate, and I have pictures of those, and I'm going to sometimes be showing you a slide too, which has a little information maybe about the individual attachment. And if you care, you can just pause the video on that and hopefully be able to read the information. Okay, so this attachment set was a part number of 161279. And like every attachment set, it came with an attachment box. And on the on this 403A, it was just one of their cardboard boxes. And this one, as you can see, got some use. It's taped together. Like most of them, it's better than some that I have. But it was cardboard. You know, with the 401A, you got a plastic, and with the Rocketeer, 500A, you got a plastic. But there's the part number there, and of course inside it had it has its little compartments, and it's all folded up out of like poster board or pasteboard or cardboard, whatever you call this stuff. And Singer still made all of these in their own print shop and factory at the time. This was 1958, this set. So it had little compartments and places, and you can see it's just kind of folded and glued together. You know, I often thought if I had a print shop or a little manufacturing setup, I would make new boxes, copy these and make new ones, all pretty for people, and I could sell them with a refurbished or restored machine. But anyway, that's very typical, right? I'm sure many of you have something like this with your machine, or have what's left of it. A lot of times when you buy these used machines, a garage sale or yard sale or estate sale or at the thrift shop, you know, it's just the machine and it's got one presser foot. And you can buy everything I'm going to show you here, you can buy usually off of eBay. I don't shop Amazon much, but I've been told there's a lot more vintage Singer stuff on Amazon now, a lot of sellers. And the other thing that was included was the instruction manual for the machine, and it's black and white. It's still in the days when they did very nice manuals with very good illustrations, hand-drawn illustrations of all the parts and how they work, how to thread the needle, how to position the different parts. This discussion of tension for straight stitch, tension for zigzag. If you wanted to sew a certain kind of stitch, what equipment you would use for it, and very nicely done. And you know, when I get a model that's new to me, I get a copy of this from singer.com/support. Still has them. I don't know for how long. They quit giving access to the parts list, but instruction manuals are still available. But anyway, I read through the whole thing. I just, you know, not all in one sitting, but I read through, because you can learn a lot about the model and how to use it, really, from reading it. Look, this tells you how to use some of the fashion discs to make certain borders. It's very nicely done, index in the back, and it's about 100 pages long. So if you never read your instruction manual, I'd encourage you to do it. Okay, now the next thing on the attachment set was the bed plate screw and the bed plate washer, or nut. Actually, it's called the nut, the bed plate nut. And the little nipple end here is what was screwed into the bottom of the machine. See the little slot for your screwdriver. And then this holds on the bottom plate, which we now more commonly call the drip pan or the oil pan, but it's actually called the bottom plate. And these are included in the set. And the bottom plate, now I've been told, was actually installed at the factory after testing the machine. But other people have told me no, it was shipped with the machine, it wasn't installed because the stores had to clean the machines and lubricate them, and that they installed this with the bottom plate. The next item on their parts list for this was 4 felt washers. And in this case, they were brown, this brown color or cocoa color to match the machine. And this machine that I call Regina has a matching beige colored bottom plate. So the 4th washer, felt washer, was also brown. Now for some reason, some of the machines shipped with a black bottom plate, and they had the 4th felt washer was black. So don't be surprised if you see something like that. And even though we call them a spool pin, you know, spool pin washer, they just called them a felt washer. Then next they had the general purpose throat plate and the general purpose presser foot. Now we normally call these Zig Zag now, but they were called general purpose. And if you're going to sew zigzag and straight stitch back and forth, you would use these 2 attachments to do that. And of course, with the throat plate positioning bracket, you can easily lift this up and slide it off, and then slide on the other general purpose. Later models, they sometimes called that multi-purpose. And the other plate that you would be sliding on was the straight stitch needle plate. And the long time straight stitch presser foot. It's actually called 001, the straight stitch. And this is when you're doing some very fine top stitching, or you're sewing very fine thin materials or lace or kind of poofy material. And if you've never used this, you know, a lot of times you pick up the machine and it's got this set up on it, because you find it used and it's got that. And a lot of people didn't even know that this existed. But if you want to see some beautiful straight stitching, the idea is this little hole and the close toes of that presser foot, the fabric cannot pucker up or flex much when you're sewing. And this would be like what you see on 301, right? And the 201, the straight stitch only setup. Well, you can still do that on your 403. And this is also what comes with the heavy duty 404, because it can't do zigzag or anything. And again, you can buy these. You find these vintage things used. You can actually buy aftermarket new feet like this. They're not quite as heavy duty, but just be sure that you get the slant, right? It's 1/4 inch taller than the straight. Of course, the straight would be about that much, you know. Be sure you get the slant. If you haven't done any straight stitching on any of the Singer machines that have this setup, you could also, it also came with this, and you can get this. Now, interesting, also installed in the machine set up at the store, and sometimes came from the factory with the general purpose, because they actually tested the machines before they shipped them. And it would come often with the bobbin case in place. And this is called the rotating hook bobbin case. And on the 403 and the 401A, it's part number 172083. Now, on the 404, the heavy duty straight stitch, they used a bobbin case 172082. But this is the rotating hook bobbin case 172083 for the 403. And it came with, and this may surprise a lot of people, Singer is the one who invented the Class 66 bobbin, and they're called Class 66 because when they went from their Model 15 and they made the Model 66, they made a new bobbin for it, and that's why it's called Class 66. And this machine came with 4 Singer Class 66 plastic bobbins. This is what came from the factory with it. And that's what Singer recommended for this machine, which surprises a lot of people. A lot of people say they don't like the plastic bobbins, especially if they're using heavy threads. And one fellow told me that if you use a plastic bobbin instead of metal, you're going to have to change the tension on the bobbin case, because this is so much lighter than a metal bobbin, which didn't make sense to me, because the tension is put on the thread, not the, you know, the bobbin case tension spring puts tension on the bobbin thread, not the bobbin. So anyway, just in case you were interested, 172336 is the part number, 172336. A lot of times you'll see sellers advertising it, and they'll add a P for plastic on the end of it. And this was also listed on the parts diagram for the 401A Slant-O-Matic, which really surprised a lot of people. But that same part number. The 404 with that other bobbin case number also had a different bobbin part number, 172222. But now that bobbin is made in plastic also. And if you look around, you can still buy Singer branded bobbins. And there's a lot of aftermarket bobbins that'll just say Class 66 type or Class 66 Singer type. These are usually a little better, a little bit heavier duty, but I have found some aftermarket that are very good quality, but it's hard to tell from pictures. Okay, so there's the plastic bobbin that surprises everybody. The next thing was called an applique foot, and later Singer started calling it a special purpose. And this is a funny looking presser foot. A lot of people, they see it, they don't know what it's for. But if you see under here, it has this kind of raised from the top. It's raised right here. Between the toes, it's raised, so it can go over satin stitch, and this is really ideal to use for satin stitching, like making your buttonhole and applique, monogram, and that's why it was called the applique foot, and later became known as the special purpose foot. And I'm not sure if you'll see, there's a little raised eyelet right there. And what that is for is you can put a very lightweight cord or a heavy thread, and you run it through your tension unit and so forth down to here and into the front of that eyelet. And when you're doing your satin stitch, you zigzag right over that lightweight cord or heavy thread, and it kind of makes a raised satin stitch that stands out, and it's very nice. So the applique or special purpose foot. Next is a commonly misunderstood foot called the button foot. It looks similar to a shearing foot or gathering foot, but this machine didn't come with a gathering foot. Like many models, it came with a button foot that's used to go down on any size button. And you would raise your, you would lift the throat plate up above the feed dog and put this down and put your button under there, and you could zigzag stitch between the button holes. And it has this groove cut through it right there. This groove that's cut in here is that you can put a needle, either the thin end like this, or you see how there's a hole in the back, you can push it all the way through and you can sew over the clamping end of the needle, and that's so you can make like a thread, a shank. The button hole, no, the button foot, not buttonhole, just the button foot. Next is the hemmer foot that'll put a little flat hem on the end of a fabric. And you know, before you would have to fold over your fabric like two little folds, say 1/8 of an inch, and then iron it, and then try and stitch right on the edge to put a hem along the end of it, like a handkerchief, napkins, tablecloth, and so forth. Well, this foot that they made will do that for you automatically. Now you have to fold, make two little folds on about the first couple inches and get it in there and push it in there and get it started. Okay, but then as you sew, it'll fold that edge of the fabric over twice and hem it, sew it, put a seam on it, give it a nice finished edge. And some people do that on the inside of their clothing and stuff, so they don't have a cut fabric that will fray. They would run this the hemmer along it to kind of close off all the ends, and like in the days before the serger, kind of. And these now come in many different sizes of a hem that you can make. This makes about an 1/8, I'd say, and they have some that make much bigger hems automatically. Hemmer. The next is a binder foot, and Singer's had a binder foot for a long time, and this is called a multi-slotted binder because you can put all different sizes of binding material, and you put your binding in here, and then you put the fabric you're gonna bind it to in the slot, and then you sew, and you got your binder going through here to keep it up, and then you just sew it, and it puts that beautiful perfect binding all the way around the edge of a placemat or an apron or a lot of kids' jumpers, things like that. And this was a multi-slotted binder. Pretty cool. You notice I'm getting you ready for the famous or infamous ruffler. Whee, look at that. That is quite a presser foot, isn't it? This actually will automatically sew ruffles onto fabric. Attaches to the needle or presser bar, and then this attachment hooks on to the needle bar, and you'll see the pusher there. As your needle goes up and down, it folds the fabric over into a ruffle, and it sews it as you go. Okay, and then it is adjustable for different sizes of ruffle and different thickness of material. And you can just, take like ribbon and sew it into a ruffle, or lace on its own, or you can make a ruffle and sew it to another piece of fabric all at the same time with this. I think this is probably the most underused foot, but I have seen people who use this all the time, making baby clothes and christening gowns, and what do you call it, like crib bumpers, mattress bumpers, and it's nothing to them to use it. They've practiced so much they could do it blindfolded, but man, can they create some beautiful, short ruffles, long ruffles. They'll just sew a bunch of ruffles so later they can sew it onto another piece of fabric, or all in one, make a ruffle and sew it onto fabric all at the same time. The ruffler. So if you ever want a challenge and you're bored with nothing to do, get out that manual and look at the page with the ruffler and give it a try. It'll keep you occupied for a while right there, I think. The next attachment is the adjustable zipper foot. You can also use it to put on cording, and it's adjustable because you clamp it to the pressure bar, but it has a little tightening nut, and you can slide the foot left and right to do either side of the zipper, and depending on the size, how far you want to slide it, and then you can re-lock it or tighten it back up to keep it in that position while you sew. So that is the adjustable zipper foot. The next item here is also adjustable, and it's a seam guide. If you notice the little holes to the right of your slide plate and throat plate over there, one of them is an oil port, but you may have one or two that is threaded, and that is to tighten this down, and you can adjust it and use it to guide the edge of the fabric when you sew, and you adjust it to how wide or narrow you want that seam to be. And if you're going to be sewing on a curve, that's why you may notice the end of it here is bent over at a 90 degrees angle, and then you can pivot this to do inside and outside curves. So even if you pivot it on the machine, so then if you're doing a inside curve, you can still sew. Adjustable seam guide. This is back in the day. It's aluminum and steel, and it was, you know, later they went to plastic, but of course this will last you a lifetime because it's metal. Now I almost forgot that it came with the 3 spool pins also. If you saw my finishing touches video, you saw me replace the 3 spool pins with these tap-in type. The machine came with all 3, 2 for the arm cover, 1 for the bobbin winder, but they weren't installed at the factory. You know, this was one of the things that came with the attachment set, but the employees at the stores, at the retail stores, would unpack the machines and clean them and do any final lubrication, and then they would install you know, like the bottom plate and the spool pins and the spool pin felts. So this was also included in the attachments. Now there was 9 fashion discs that came with the 403 special. One was shipped in the machine itself, and that was the disc 0, which is the standard Zig Zag disc. That was actually placed in the machine at the factory for testing and just left there. And then in the box there came 8 more fashion discs. these little, let's see if I show you those little spaces around the edge. Maybe you noticed them in the box, but they fit right into those little slots in store right there, and there was 2 on each side of the box. So besides the one, the standard zigzag discs, they gave you 8 other fashion discs. They gave you these 4, which were fashion disc number 1, 5, 6, and 7. 1, 5, 6, and 7. And these were the these are the patterns for those. Then the other 4 set were discs 8, 9, 10, and 11. 9, 10, and 11. So those all stored, just like that. Pretty good design. And here's the patterns for 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now let's take a look at the next 3 attachments. They're not really attachments, but they came in the box. They were supplied by Singer. Screwdriver large, screwdriver small, and the lint brush. Sometimes when I look at these machines that I buy, I think this is, after the Ruffler, this is the second least used thing that people use. Okay. Anyway, a very nice, twisted wire. This is the original vintage ones. You can buy, replicas of this that are of good quality for a couple of bucks. The little screwdriver, or small screwdriver, came in a few different versions. This one is the bright metal. There's one they call black side, I think, that has darker metal like this, and that's very popular with the featherweight owners. This one has some scratch marks here, like somebody grabbed it with pliers to turn maybe a hard screw. But you might be surprised if you look on eBay and see how much just this little screw cost. And I think the problem is I only get it with attachment sets like 10 or 20% of the time. This was very easily lost, So I was happy to see it with this. And the large screwdriver is like a heavy piece of steel wire that they bend in this loop, and they do a little solder, I think, welding maybe, to do it there, and they flatten this tip out and grind it. It's very works very good for most of the medium-sized screws on the machine that they expected the homeowner to do, take the covers off and things like that for just cleaning and oiling and so forth. So there's the little screwdriver set. Large screwdriver, small screwdriver, and the lint brush. That is almost everything that came with it. The other thing is that they did include 2 packages of needles. 3 to a package. Here's some still in the original package that this person never opened. 3 size 14 needles, and these are the 2020 class 2020 needle, which everybody calls a 15 by 1 or 15x1. And look at that, 3 needles for 30 cents in 1958. And this package had been removed from the card and it's been opened, but they also included 3 size 16 needles. Now that is the complete attachment set sent from the factory and included with the purchase of the machine when you bought the machine at the store. Okay. Now, if you look in this guide or the instruction manual, you'll see that they show some other possibilities that you could buy. And there was 12 more discs that you could purchase separately. And they originally came in little cardboard boxes for each foot. I mean each fashion disc. And like I said, there was 12 of them. So at the time of '58, there was the 9 and the 12. There was a total of 21. I think there was someplace along the line. I think there's another disc that they made, but it's pretty rare. So I better not talk too much about that because I'm not sure of it. But first you could buy individual, right? Then they started selling them in little 3-packs. I've seen those. And then this set is actually marked for classes 600 and 603 machines. And after the Rocketeers, they started selling this box. You could buy all 12. You could just buy a set of 12, and of course it was cheaper to buy 12 than to buy the 3-pack, and the 3-pack was cheaper than buying 3 individuals. So if you're interested in obtaining more of these, you know, if you search for like the 403 or 401A fashion discs, you might not see them. So don't forget to search for class 600 and 603. These are usually readily available. And let me show you a slide with what these 12 patterns are. And remember, you can you can pause on the slide if you want to take a closer look at them, or come back some other time and look closer at them. But they talk about these being available in that original instruction manual, so that's why I know that the discs were available back then. Now they also talk in there about some additional purchase fashion aids, and I don't have them. One of them I know I have someplace, but I couldn't find it. Oh wait, you know what? I missed one more thing because I don't have one, but they included this little tube of oil so that you could oil the machine. And I've had one before, and somebody actually bought it, gave me some good money for it, because that's the only thing they lacked. But I did find a picture of it, of the type that I had. So let me show you that slide. I'm sorry, that was included in the original, and I forgot that until now. Okay, so they mention in the instruction manual and that there's some additional purchase fashion aids, 4 of them at that time. There was a darning attachment and an embroidery, darning and embroidery attachment, and an edge stitcher attachment. And I just scanned the info about it out of the instruction manual. Let me show you the slide. Okay, and then the other two fashion aids that you could purchase were a gathering foot, which I told you before that a lot of people confuse that with the button foot, but they call it gathering or shearing foot, and the big old tucker attachment. Let me show you those two. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now, of course, there is there's a button holder attachment, which I do have, and I think I'm thinking of demonstrating that. And later they came out with a slant monogramming attachment that kind of works like a button holder. You know, where you have these discs for the different letters, and you put them in the device, and it'll automatically sew letters, and I think maybe numbers 0 through 9. But that except for the extra 12 discs and the 4 extra purchase fashion aids I just showed you the slides of, that's the set that you got in 1958, 1959, I think early 1960 when they sold the 403A. And it is rare to you know, to find a whole set. Years ago, once in a while I'd find one, I could buy it for about $12 or $15. I haven't looked for 2 or 3 years, but the last couple times I looked they were like $25 or $30. But it's been a few years. I have no idea what a full set is worth now. But I was fortunate that this came and it had everything except the tube of oil, you know. And this is the first time I ever had an totally sealed needle, the original needles that came with the machine. Okay, that's it. I think I got everything there. I'm sorry I forgot the spool pins till the end. You're probably wondering, or maybe not. I hope that was worth your time, and I hope that you will come back and watch some more videos on my AndyTube channel. Take care.